Welcome to Lesson 3 of our ISO 9001-2015 series. In today's lesson, we are exploring one of the core principles of ISO 9001-2015 standard, the process approach. Together with a PDCA cycle and risk-based thinking, the process approach forms a foundational part of ISO 9001-2015. In simple terms, these three concepts, the PDCA cycle, the risk-based thinking, and the process approach, are the three pillars that support the entire standard of ISO 9001-2015. In lesson 2, we already covered the PDCA cycle, including its 4 phases: plan, do, check, act, key features, and more importantly, we discussed why the PDCA cycle is essential to continuous improvement. You can find the link of lesson 2 in the description box below. The process approach. The process approach applies to any organization regardless of its size, type, or complexity, because we can say all the organizations uses process to achieve their objectives. But before we dive into how the process approach works, let's first take a moment to understand what a process actually is. What is process? A process is a set of interrelated or interacting activities that uses inputs to produce an intended output. Inputs and outputs can be tangible or intangible. By tangible, we mean physical items that can be seen and touched, such as raw materials, components, or equipments. Or it can be intangible, meaning non-physical elements like data, information, or knowledge which cannot be seen or touched. In other words, a process is basically you are operating a certain activity within your business to convert raw materials, unfinished product, some data or information, or in general inputs into an output, such as a finished product or services useful to the customers. A process is a step you follow in your organization to get results. To have an output of a service or a product, all organizations relies on processes or interconnected activities to achieve their intended objectives. For example, a customer service process can manage or can handle complaints of the customers, or the main purpose of a customer service process is to provide or to manage the service which is provided for the customers. Another example can be a billing process. The main purpose of a billing process is that it creates and sends invoices to the customers. As you see from these two examples, there should be an input to be converted into the output to achieve the objectives of each process. For example, if we take a customer service process that handles the complaints of the customers, the output for this process is a service. For these processes, an employee, technology, and equipment might be an input, and a billing process that creates and sends invoice to the customers. For these processes, the input may be an employee and a technology, and the output of this process is an invoice which is sent to the customers. A process has the following key characteristics. The first characteristics of a process is it has a defined inputs and output. It has determined or known inputs and known outputs. Another characteristic is it is repeatable and predictable. Using the same process, we can get the same output repeatedly, or the output is already predictable or known. And it uses resources such as people, material, systems, and so on. And the last characteristic is it is controllable and measurable. A process can be measured using the process KPI. As you see in this figure, there are 4 basic elements of a process. The first one is an input. The second is an activities. Here there are multiple activities which are interconnected. And the third is an output. And the last or the fourth is the control and measurement. And here the inputs may be matter, energy, information in the form of materials, resources, and they are just requirements of the process. All these inputs are put together and they are converted into outputs. And the outputs can be either services or products, or it may be a decision. Once we understand what a process is, it is time to shift our focus to the process approach. What's process approach? Unlike the process approach is more than just completing a single process. The process approach is a strategic method that involves planning, managing, and improving interrelated processes as part of a unified system. Here, there are multiple processes, just like there are multiple activities in a single process. On the other hand, in a process approach, there are multiple processes working together to ensure consistent, effective results aligned with the organization's quality objectives. The process approach is the organization's strategy for delivering reliable, efficient results with all departments and processes aligned and working together. In ISO 9001-2015, the process approach is a core principles of building an effective quality management system. Instead of managing process in isolation, the process approach treats them as an interconnected, enabling predictable, consistent outcomes. To consistently meet stakeholder expectations, processes must work together seamlessly. This approach emphasizes understanding and managing these interactions to boost overall performance and customer satisfaction. Customer satisfaction is not the responsibility of just one department or one process, like marketing, production, or procurement department. In fact, each department or process plays a role, but no single process or department can meet customer needs on its own. To deliver real value, these departments must work together as an interconnected system. The output of one process often becomes the input for another, meaning any weakness in one area can affect the performance of the whole system. That's why the process approach is so important. It's not just about solving isolated problems. It's about ensuring all processes are aligned, connected, and functioning smoothly as a whole system. This holistic view helps organizations deliver consistent quality and meet customer expectations effectively. In short, the basic difference between the process and the process approach is that, according to the definition, the process is just a set of interconnected activities that have an input and output, whereas the process approach is a management principle of linking, controlling, improving multiple processes working together for a common objective. According to a scope, a process has a narrow scope which can do a specific or a single issue. On the other side, a process approach has a wider scope, which is an organizational wide or holistic approach. That is a strategic way to manage process across the system to achieve quality, efficiency, and improvement. For example, hiring staff can be a process, whereas understanding how hiring affects HR, finance, and operations and coordinating HR with them is a process approach. So here in the process approach, there are multiple interconnected processes working together to achieve certain objective. As you see in this figure, we can see the process approach. As you see here, the inputs for this process can be the outputs of another process. The outputs of this process can be the inputs of another process. As a conclusion, applying a process approach means seeing the big picture, understanding how process connects, how they impact one another, and how they collectively contribute to customer satisfaction and continuous improvement. This is the end of our today's discussion on process approach, and thank you for listening. If you do have any question or comment, please write it in the comment box below. Once again, don't forget to subscribe for more insightful lessons on how to implement quality management system ISO 9001-2015 in your organization effectively. If you like this particular video, please hit the like button and share to your friends. Thank you.